In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex.
Are the Bible's prophecies today's reality?
This could be the sign that signals the return of Christ.
World leaders are working behind the curtain.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. Secret societies, secret oaths, secret proceedings.
Now, get ready for an hour of truth that will make you think. We'll examine Bible prophecy and see how close we are to the return of Jesus Christ for His church. You're in the zone. Politics, Israel, the Middle East, the revised European superstate, and more. All in the zone. This is the Prophecy Zone with your host, Phil Armstrong.
This is Phil Armstrong, and I'd like to welcome you out to the Prophecy Zone. This is a show, a recording that I had with Ralph Epperson. So we talked a little bit about conspiratorial view of history. So he's a great guest. Sometimes he veers off. Tells stories, which is a great thing about Ralph Epperson. He does a lot of stories. He's in his 80s. So just go ahead and enjoy the rest of this interview, and God bless y'all. Y'all have a wonderful night. So I'm coming to y'all live from the beautiful place, Spokane, Washington. Tonight we have an awesome guest, Ralph Epperson, the author of the book The Unseen Hand and the New World Order. He has been a guest on our show earlier. We talked about the conservative view of history, and we're going to do it again tonight. I really enjoy Ralph's coming on the show the first time, and I'm pretty sure we have some interesting things to talk about today. We are so happy to be able to come to y'all live from Justin TV and also Ustream. I don't know if it's actually connected to Ustream. One of my computers is debugging, so I can't really look. I got like 20 monitors in my office, but one of the monitors is tied up. So, without further ado, we're just going to go ahead and bring, because normally I just run them off for a minute, but we're going to go ahead and bring Mr. Ralph Epperson on. Ralph?
Yes, I'm there.
How you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm doing fine, Phil. How are you tonight?
Okay. Sorry for all the mix-up, but I'm glad to have you on.
Well, I'm glad we could do it. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about some of the things I've discovered in my many years of research.
Yes, sir. Well, let's just go ahead and get started. And let's just go ahead and talk about some of your most current investigations, or even let's just go ahead and talk about some new things that we haven't talked about last time. I think we stuck with the Christian view. I want to talk more towards the conspiratorial view this time. We kind of tied Christianity and the foundation of the country together with conspiratorial view, but let's go ahead and talk about the mystical, as far as like the mysticism in Washington, D.C., the Freemasons, all this other stuff that jives today's current political climate, because, for instance, the shattering of the Constitution, the Patriot Act, which they're still pushing, as if we got artificial boogeymen walking around trying to harm us on every corner. And also at Walmart, they have Ms. Politano saying that if you see something suspicious, report it. Evidently, our freedoms are dissolving every day. But let's tie all this together with history and what do you think about the current situation that we're in?
Okay. Well, I'd be happy to do so. Let me go back a little bit about me and my past. I started studying this stuff in 1962, and I've been on it ever since, all of my adult life. And I'm absolutely 100% convinced that there is a conspiracy at work in this world, that it's 6,000 years old. It's nothing more than a continuation of something that goes back 6,000 years. And our government is well aware that this thing is real. In fact, they're part of the process, and that's what the problem is. And I've since discovered that the secret behind this whole thing is that America was commissioned to be part of this thing back around the time of the founding of this nation back in 1776. And we can talk about that if you'd like. It might be a good place to start, and then take it from there. Would that be okay? You want to do that first?
Yes, sir. That'd be great.
Well, let me do it. Let me do it indirectly. Barack Obama was not born in the United States. He was not born in the United States. Therefore, he's not a president. He can't be president. So, therefore, I didn't listen to the State of the Union address because our president did not address us. Barack Obama is constitutionally, ineligible. He cannot be, because the Constitution demands that he be born, natural born, which means born in the United States, and he was not. Now let's examine that, because there's been 17 lawsuits filed on the Supreme Court to ask them to clarify this question, because Barack Obama has not presented a birth certificate, which would be the only legal way that he could say that he was born in the United States. He doesn't have one of those. He has one that he was born in Kenya, part of Africa, and that statement's true. Yeah. So now, let's go with that. Why is the Supreme Court not going to answer the questions of Philip Berg and about 16 others? And the answer is because the Constitution doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. It's been overturned by the Supreme Court in 1938 in a case called Erie Railroad versus Tompkins. Anyone can find the Supreme Court decision in 1938 by just going to a law library, get these Supreme Court decisions out from 1938, and you'll see that it has been overturned. Therefore, the constitutional requirement that Barack Obama be born in the United States does not apply. In other words, we could elect a 3-year-old from Algeria if we wanted to. There is no Constitution anymore. So let me try to prove that to you. I want to go to we're going to make this as brief as I can, because this is all covered in a video that I've got on the internet you can watch for free, called America's Secret Destiny. And when you go there, you'll find this in far more detail than what we're going to cover tonight. But let's go back to 1776, and we'll talk about this, because the Constitution is null and void, and I'm going to try to prove that to you right now. Let's go to the second paragraph. I'll make this brief if I can. Down at the bottom of the Declaration of Independence, issued July 4th, 1776. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations. And the word usurpations is defined as taking away the God-given rights of the citizens, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. Now, what does that mean? Tyranny is defined as total power in the hands of the government. Total, unlimited power. So King George was guilty of creating tyranny, absolute power, grabbing absolute power in the United States. Now, then the next sentence reads, to prove this, let the facts be submitted to a candid world. So the Founding Fathers are now going to document how he was creating a tyrannical government in the United States. Now, notice this. They're going to accuse the government of this, which means King George and his Parliament. They were grabbing total power, and we're now going to prove that. So the King George was guilty of, and then the 22nd of these listings of these objections of theirs reads as follows. He was guilty of suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. To legislate in all cases, legislate.
Hey, how y'all doing? If y'all like the show, check us out on www.blogtalkradio. facebook.com/Prophecy Zone Radio. And also check at the bottom. I'll have a link to check out our radio program. If you like it, give me a holler.
All cases whatsoever. The power to do that. Now, what does that mean? That means there's no Constitution, no Bill of Rights, no Magna Carta, no concept of God-given unalienable rights. Whatever the king wants, he gets. Power to legislate in all cases whatsoever. Those are the exact words of the Declaration of Independence. Now, 11 years later, in 1787, our founding fathers wrote the Constitution. And they created 3 branches of government, saying, boy, we're going to separate the power and not let anyone take too much of it. But let's look at what they did. Let's now go to Article 1, which creates the legislative branch of the government. There's 2 more, the executive and the judicial, of course. So now we're going to see what they did. It says all legislative powers, all legislative powers herein granted, and then they go on to Section 8, and Section 8 lists those granted powers. The Congress shall have power too, and there's only 18 of them. Only 18. Wait a minute. They're limited to only 18 powers? Yes, and I'll prove that in a minute as well. Now, when you read, they read very briefly, like the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, borrow money, regulate commerce, establish naturalization, coin money, punish counterfeiters, create post offices, create tribunals, meaning courts, declare war, raise an army, and so on and so on. And then we go down to the 17th one, and let's read that one very carefully. The Congress shall have power to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever. Now, where have we heard those words before? In the Declaration of Independence. King George was granting himself the power to legislate in all cases whatsoever. That means that he was creating tyrannical power. Our founding fathers noted that in 1776 and said it was absolute tyrannical power. And now Congress is giving that same power to Congress. Why? Why? Congress has unlimited powers. Now let's just examine that for a few minutes. If we're talking about granted powers, the power to raise an army and declare war, etc., and they have to be spelled out, where is the spelled out power for the founding fathers to allow Congress to fund stem cell research? Now, I don't even know what that is, but I can assure you our founding fathers did not know what it was. How could they have listed that delegated power? How could they do that? How could they delegate the power to go to the moon? How would they have even conceived of that in 1787? How?
Fabricated.
Yeah, right. And so, in other words, but no, Congress knows they've got the unlimited power of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, the power to legislate in all cases whatsoever. You understand? Our founding fathers gave Congress total, tyrannical, despotic power, unlimited. Whatever the Congress wants to do, they can do. And that's what they're doing. They know that. But we dummies don't know that. Now, let me tell you how we know that. Let's keep going. Let's go to the 10th Amendment. Let's read that one. And that'll help us understand that they did try to limit it. 10th Amendment reads, I'm sorry, I'm flipping little pages in my little copy of the Constitution here.
Yeah.
10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution are reserved to the states or the people. Wait. All powers not delegated. In other words, you've only got certain delegated powers, and if it's not delegated, the people have the right or the state governments have the right. So if anyone wants to go to the moon, you've got to convince the people of Arizona, where I live, to go. And the people say, no, we're not going to go if we don't go. In other words, they know they've got the power, but we don't know. This is the secret power of the government. I was on a History Channel documentary, I guess a couple of years ago now, called The Secrets of the Founding Fathers. And I tried to cover this, but they wouldn't let me say it. I wonder why. In fact, I did say it. They taped it. I with their understanding, I was going to say it. They knew I was going to say it, and then they didn't put it in their documentary. I wonder why. Someone said, don't reveal too much here about the secrets of the Founding Fathers, but that's the number one secret. Now, let's finish this. Let me now go to the 13th Amendment. This was passed after the Civil War, 1866 or 7. Let me get that as well. I'll get the exact date. Passed in 1865, at the end of the Civil War. It says, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist in the United States. Now, what does that mean? Slavery is defined as forcing someone to do something without their permission. That's what slavery was all the time during up to the Civil War, in fact, when Lincoln abolished it by the Emancipation Proclamation. He said slavery shall no longer exist, meaning you can't force someone to do something they don't want to do. What's involuntary servitude? Forcing someone to sign a contract to do something they don't want to do. So we're abolishing that forever, okay? But notice this. Voluntary servitude is permitted. It's not excluded. So if you want to volunteer to be a slave anytime you want to do that, you're free to do so.
Yeah.
They can't force you, but you can volunteer. Oh, okay, I don't think I want to volunteer. Well, I'm going to show you how we have all volunteered. Now let's go to the 14th Amendment, passed in 1868, just a couple of years later. All persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Now, what does that mean? All persons born or naturalized in the United States. By the way, the Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 says they only have the power to legislate in all cases in the United States. Let's cover that first. I meant to do that. I didn't do it. The United States is only Washington, D.C. 10 miles square. 10 by 10 by 10 by 10. So that's the only place the United States is. That's the only place they exist. We live in the United States of America. America. In fact, in the Declaration, they didn't capitalize the U in United, but they did in the S in States. So they were saying there's a nation called America, and the states are getting together and are united, the 13 of them. And when you talk about certain specific states, like the 13, you capitalize the S. So we're really America. That's all. We're just called America. And the United States of America got together to form the Union. But they created a separate government in Washington, D.C. It's called the Government of the United States. Now, wait a minute. Now, how does that affect me? Listen to me, America. It says all persons born or naturalized in the United States. Now, what does that mean? Well, there's only two ways to become a citizen of the United States, according to the 14th Amendment. By the way, the term citizen of the United States was not used until the 18th Amendment. There's no record of anyone ever be calling themselves a citizen of the United States. Not that I can find anyway. So how do you become a citizen of the United States? Well, you have to do it two ways. Either you're born there in Washington, D.C., or you're naturalized in Washington, D.C. Now, what does it mean to be naturalized? Let's use probably the best-known example of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Schwarzenegger was born in Austria, and I guess someplace along the line he says, I want to go to America and become the Terminator. So he says, okay, let's do that. So he goes through a process. I think he has to file papers, and they have to approve it, and he's got to have a job and a guarantee and certain requirements. That's all naturalized. It's called naturalization. And then at the end of 5 years, if he'd done everything right, and he didn't mess up and go to jail or slam somebody, then he gets to become a citizen of the United States. And you might see this every year. They have a picture of a bunch of people waving the flag, and they've all become citizens, taken an oath to obey the Constitution of the United States, etc. So Schwarzenegger did that. Now, Schwarzenegger could not be forced to be a citizen. He volunteered. So I said he volunteered to become a slave of the United States because the United States has total power. So you could either be born in Washington, D.C. to become a citizen of the government of Washington, D.C., or you could become naturalized and become a citizen of the United States. Now, how did you and I become a citizen? Well, we did. Oh, yeah, let's see now. had to get a Social Security card from the United States, didn't we? No, there is no law. There's no law. There is no law. They don't have the power over a citizen of the state of Arizona. They can't force me because that's involuntary servitude. But voluntary servitude is permitted. So what they did is that you've got to get a card. Well, I guess I can't get a job without one. That's wrong, because the government knows there is no law. Now, in my video, my DVD called America's Secret Destiny on the internet, you can watch it for free. I give you 2 letters that are real from the Social Security Administration admitting it's voluntary. Now, wait a minute. If it's voluntary, why do we have to get it? Well, that's your problem, not ours. We didn't say it was mandatory. It's not. The letters admit, both letters admit it's voluntary. So there's no law. By the way, there's also no law requiring any citizen of the state of Arizona or any other state to pay federal income taxes. There's no law. Now, if you'd like to make $100,000, please get in touch with me, and I'll tell you where you could do it. All you got to do is find the law. That's easy. Go to a law library or call the IRS and ask them what law requires me to pay income taxes, and they'll hem and haw and they won't answer it. But the answer is there is no law.
Yeah.
Because we have volunteered.
Yeah, that's true.
Once you volunteer, you're asked to keep volunteering.
Yeah.
So when you stop paying, and you've paid in the past but stop paying, then they get you for failure to file. You agreed that you have to pay the taxes, now keep paying them. There is no law. Oh yes, there is. It's called color of law. That's when the Congress can enforce a law that doesn't exist. It sounds like a law, people think there's a law, it looks like a law, it's enforced like a law, but it doesn't exist. It's called colorable law, color law of law, which means we think it's real, therefore it's real. Notice, how did we volunteer? When we walked in to get the socialist, that's what it's called, the socialist security card, we voluntarily submitted to the jurisdiction of the government, and when we did, we became a naturalized citizen of the United States, and that government has total power. In other words, the Founding Fathers set it up so we would do this, and we've all done it because we think we have to. You don't have to. Now, once you get it, it's too late. Now, when I was in business, University of Arizona, in the business department there, I took a class called business law, and that doesn't mean I'm a lawyer. It just means that we took a little bit of understanding about the law of contract. Now, there's only 2 ways out of the system. Yeah. One is you've got to prove force or fraud. So we got to say, wait a minute, I didn't have to do this, and you forced me to do this, or you tricked me. And I would say the chance of getting that agreed to in a court of law in the United States is not very, very good. And as far as I know, no one ever has. So you can't prove force or fraud. The only other way to do it is to get them to agree. Now, let's just say that you go to Social Security and say, listen, I found out there's no law. I don't want to pay anymore, and please let me out, because you have to agree that I'm right. And I don't think they're going to do that, because if one person can get out, then all of us can get out. You see?
Wow, yeah.
In other words, we voluntarily became a naturalized citizen, just like Schwarzenegger. We're a citizen of the government of the United States. Now, let's talk about how the Constitution was abolished, eliminated. So now it doesn't matter at all, as long as you're signed up, as long as you keep getting those, you're sure to get the Social Security card and the numbers. You're part of the citizen of the United States. But it doesn't matter, because something happened in 1938. Now, I want to bring to your attention, Phil, forgive me if I've already talked about this, but even if I have, for even those who have heard it before, please get familiar with this story and use it yourself. We should all be talking about this. In 1990, I re-met. I knew the man before, but he came to Tucson to speak to a club, and the man who ran the club was a friend of mine. And he said, come on over Friday night. We're going to have him speak tomorrow morning, Saturday. So come on over tonight. He's going to sit around, and we'll just sit around the table and talk. I said, boy, I'd love to do that. I want to pick his brain. So Howard Freeman, this man's name is, he's now gone, but he was alive in 1990.
Yeah.
And Howard Freeman came to Tucson and told us two quick stories. And I want you to know, by the way, I believe the man because I knew him before, and I've never found him in a lie. I don't think it was possible for him to lie. But here's his two stories. I'll make them very brief. Number one, he was in a courtroom as an expert witness for a young man who stopped paying income tax, and they charged him with failure to file. So he was going to use Howard Freeman to show the judge and the court and the jury that there was no requirement to pay the income taxes according to Supreme Court decisions. So Freeman was asked by the young man, well, who are you, what do you know, and tell me what, why, and he listed about 6 or 8 cases that say you don't have to pay income taxes. Now, when Freeman got finished, he was stunned because they were going to put this in the court record. Anyone could use it, therefore. And so he went back to the young man and said, you're going to win. The judge cannot ignore standing Supreme Court decisions. He's a federal judge. He took an oath to support the Constitution, which means he's got to support court cases. So now the judge is going to turn the jury free to go vote. How is he guilty or not guilty? So he says to the jury, okay, the case has now been completed. The jury, it's your obligation to hear the evidence and decide whether the man was guilty of failure to file. But before you leave, I want to tell you say one thing. You are to completely ignore the testimony of Howard Freeman. Period. And the jury left. Now, Freeman said, wait a minute, he can't do that. Now, it's about as loud and angry as I thought Freeman would ever get. So Freeman walked around back quickly and caught the judge just as he was going into his office, apparently across the hall from the back of the courtroom. He came out of the courtroom, walked across the hall, unlocked the door, and Freeman caught him right there. And
hey, Ralph.
Said, yes?
We're coming at the bottom of the hour. We're going to take a quick breath. We'll be right back, okay?
Thank you.
Connecting the dots and showing you why we are more vulnerable than ever.
Greetings, fellow Americans. This is David Robertson, inviting you to come be a part of an American Warning Radio, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. Central.
You've seen the pieces. Now, come see the bigger picture. An American Warning Radio with your host, David Robertson, on this and many other networks that value liberty.
All they're getting is mainstream media stuff. That's all they're getting, including Fox News.
The American Warning Program with David Robertson, just a great show. All kidding aside, the numbers are really starting to go up on that program, and I think once people realize that that's on now live Monday through Friday, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock on this very station, you're going to be tuning in a lot more. That guy makes a lot of sense, and he's really good at what he does. Warning. Warning. This habit forming. This habit forming. Use the truth carefully.
Get more information at AnAmericanWarning.com. That's AnAmericanWarning.com.
Talk about the soon coming of Jesus Christ to the earth to destroy his enemies and set up his long-awaited kingdom. Tonight we will talk about end-time prophecy and what God says will happen in His Word. Stay tuned for an amazing show. You're listening to the Prophecy Zone on Blog Talk Radio.
The Prophecy Zone. When is he coming back? When is the end of days? Soon.
We are in the last days.
The Bible lays out our future, and host Phil Armstrong examines what the Scripture tells of His coming every Thursday and Sunday at 7 on The Prophecy Zone. What is the New World Order?
The people who are talking about the New World Order, Bible prophecy, may be in danger.
What do you need to be rapture ready?
I believe that the Bible interprets the Bible, and we have to stick with the Bible.
How much time is left? See more at theprophecyzone.com and youtube.com/prophecyzone. Hear more here on Blog Talk Radio every Thursday and Sunday at 7 on The Prophecy Zone.
Who is the Antichrist? I believe the Antichrist will not be known until the tribulation period starts.
This is The Prophecy Zone.
All right, we're back. We had to take a quick break there. Those who are listening on Justin TV, watching on Justin TV, we had some technical difficulties. You're going to notice that I put on some scenes that did not have any sound on it. I just found that out. So it's just a learning experience. But anyway, we're also on Ustream and live video, live stream. So we're on 3, so it's going to mess up the quality. It's going to bring the quality down somewhat. But as time goes on, we fix all this stuff, and the show's probably going to make a quantum leap about 50 more times, praying to God before the end of 2012, probably, if the Lord wills, time tarries. But anyway, we're going to go back to our guest, wonderful guest. We're having a great interview. I'm not even saying nothing. Some interviews I don't say anything. I just let the person roll. Other interviews I interject. But I think it's important for the individual who's interviewing to get with the person who is being interviewed and see what kind of style they want to do. Ralph is a very articulate person. He's very well educated, so he knows exactly where he's going. So a lot of times people ask me, well, why are you not asking this question, that question? Because sometimes it's good that I just keep my mouth shut. And then other times, last time I did it, somebody got kind of mad at me. So I'm learning my lessons. But anyway, Ralph, let's get back to what you were talking about, brother.
Well, Phil, please understand, I know what you're saying. I used to do a talk show years ago in Portland, Oregon, way back in the 70s, and so I know a little bit about the medium. And I know that, but this is an important story. And here's my point. Anyone can go, if they didn't hear part of it because of technical problems, go to my website. I'll give you the address in a minute. Write it down. Go there, and then you can watch the 4-hour DVD of which this is only a part, a small percentage of America's Secret Destiny. The website is www.ralph, Epperson, E is in Edward, PP is in Peter, ERSON.com, Ralph-Epperson.com. And just scroll down, find the video, and watch it yourself.
Yes,
no
sir.
cost, no obligation. I have no way of knowing if you do click on. I don't have any. I have a counter on there, but only to see how many people go there. But I have no way of knowing, so it's safe. You won't get any trouble. Watch it yourself. Now we're talking about the fact that America does have a secret destiny, and I'm revealing part of it tonight. Our founding fathers gave Congress total unlimited power, and I'm now explaining that in 1938 the Constitution was replaced, overturned, destroyed by a decision of the Supreme Court. Let's finish with that. That's where we're going. So now, here's what Mr. Freeman did. He caught the judge. The judge had told the jury not to ignore everything the man said. So he said, wait a minute, Your Honor, you're a federal judge. Yes, I am, Mr. Freeman. He said, Your Honor, you took an oath to support and protect and defend the Constitution. Oh, yes, I did. But, Your Honor, that means you've got to abide by Supreme Court decisions. That's true, I do. And so he said, but you overturned them. You said that they don't listen to them. And he said, well, yes, I did. But all of your decisions were prior to 1938. Now, this might have been in the 1980s, I don't know, 90s, I don't know when it was. That's 40, 50 years later. So Freeman said, wait a minute, Your Honor, what happened in 1938 to overturn standing Supreme Court decisions? And he said, I've told you too much. And he walked into his office, shut the door, and locked it, which means end of conversation. Now, the second part of the story is even more intriguing. Listen to this. Freeman then went on to tell us that he had a phone call from a retired state Supreme Court justice. Every state has a Supreme Court as well. So this guy was up to the very next level to the federal Supreme Court in the state of Montana where Freeman used to live. And the judge said, Mr. Freeman, please come to my house. I want to talk to you. So Freeman went there, and no doubt he was probably shaking because Freeman's a very mild-mannered little guy. So he went there shaking, and he said, I'm Howard Freeman. And the guy says, I know, Mr. Freeman, please sit down. I want to talk to you. So they got past the amenities, and he said, Mr. Freeman, I've been watching you for many years now and what you're saying and doing, and I want you to know that I appreciate what you are, and you're right. But here's the point. You need to know what I know. Well, what do you know, Your Honor? So he said, I was once a federal judge, meaning he was appointed by the President and then confirmed by the Senate. All federal judges are appointed by the President of the United States, including the Supreme Court. Now, so he says to him, I want to tell you what happened. He was the federal judge and then appointed to the state Supreme Court in the state of Montana. He said in 1938, there's that year, 1938, Franklin Roosevelt, President of the United States, elected in 32, became President in 33, called all of us federal judges together. And he said, I want to tell you, I'm going to make it very brief. He said, I want to tell you, judges, something very, very important. You might remember that in 1933, to end the Depression, I called in all of the gold certificates. Our money used to have a promise on the face saying, this is to certify that there is on deposit at a bank, or this bank, $10, if you got a $10 gold certificate, $10 in gold, payable to the bearer on demand, period. That's it. You walk into the bank, say, I don't want this piece of paper anymore, I want $10 in gold. You give them the piece of paper and you get your gold and you walk out the door. Notice there's nothing in there in that contract between the bank and the government and you and I, nothing about, well, subject to the whim of the president, or when the president doesn't want to do it anymore, or when he decides, or when Congress votes. It's payable on demand, right now, no questions asked. But he said, when I did that, listen to this, the international bankers, Roosevelt said, who owned the national debt, declared this nation bankrupt, because only bankrupt nations void their money by declaring the gold certificate as being void, no longer will be redeemed. And the bankers owned a lot of gold certificates. So they declared the nation bankrupt in 1938, and then Roosevelt went on to say, and they've told us that we will, as you as judges, will no longer adjudicate cases on the Constitution of the United States.
Yes.
They want you to adjudicate cases on the Uniform Commercial Code, the new law of this land, the UCC, Uniform Commercial Code. And he said, Roosevelt said, you are to take silent judicial notice of that fact. Now that's a legal term. I'll give you Epperson's definition. That means don't tell the dummies. Now that means don't tell the American people the Constitution is null and void. They believe it's still valid.
Wow.
But they know because of the color of law. The Congress can make us believe there's a law, making us get a Social Security card, and there is none. They make us believe that there's a law requiring us to pay income tax, and there is none. If you can prove it, get the law, get in touch with me, and you'll make $100,000, no questions asked.
Wow.
I'm telling you, I know where you can do this. Find the law. That offer's been outstanding for probably 20 years, and no one's even applied. Why?
Wow.
Because there is no law. Now, what does this all mean? Our founding fathers committed this nation to something, and this is the fulfillment of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, there is no common law anymore. What's the common law? The common law is God's law. What does that mean? Well, God said to us, you're only held accountable if you injure somebody or their property. Now, I want to give you a little story about a friend of mine I've known for 20 years probably. He called me one day and said, oh, Ralph, I got to tell you a story. I said, go ahead. He said, I was just in Eloy, Arizona. Now, I don't know if anyone, there might be some people listening from Eloy, I don't know. But anyway, Eloy, Arizona is a small town north of Tucson, maybe a couple hundred, I don't know, 100 miles away. I don't know quite exactly how far. But so he said, I was up there driving through, and I made an illegal right-hand turn. And so as soon as I did, probably the only policeman in the city turned me the red lights on, pulled me over and said, you violated so-and-so, I'm making an illegal right-hand turn. So he said, well, I guess I did. So he said, sign the ticket. So he did. And he says, okay, now here's what you can do. You have three options. Since you're from Tucson, you're not from Eloy. So he said, number one, you can take the envelope that comes with the ticket. The fine is, let's say, $50. Put the $50 in there, drop it in the mailbox on your way by, put a stamp on it, send it off, and then you pled guilty and it's over. You go to Tucson, it's over. And then, or secondly, you can take the envelope with you to Tucson and send $50 and pay the fine and then admit you're guilty and it's over. Or number three, you could see the judge. So my friend said, I want to see the judge. So the two of them went to the traffic court. And a little while later, I guess they were sitting there, a couple other people ahead of them. The judge says something like this. In the matter of the city of Eloy versus Mr. Bill Jones, my friend's Bill Jones. That's not his name, but just Bill Jones, are you here, Mr. Jones? And my friend said, yes, I am, sir. I'm right back here. He said, well, how do you plead in this matter? Now, here's what my young friend knew to do, and he did it. He says to the judge, before I plead, Your Honor, may I ask what court? Well, we ask a question. Freeman's taught all of us that you always ask questions, and you're polite. You don't get sarcastic or pompous. Just ask a simple question. May I ask a question? And the judge will say yes, because you have the right to understand the nature of the charges and to also get a chance to talk to the injured party. So here's what he said. So he said, okay, yes, you may. He said, well, I need to know what type of court I'm in, Your Honor. See, once again, being very friendly, not being angry or hostile. He said, well, you're in the traffic court of Eloy, Arizona, a legally constituted city of the state of Arizona. Okay, thank you very much, Your Honor. But I need to know one more question. He said, yes. Now, I'm going to give you the whole question and then tell you what happened. He said he was going to say, Your Honor, is this a common law court, a court of equity law, or a court of admiralty law? Those are the only three types of courts in the world. So the judge, I'll repeat it now and tell you what happened. So here's what he did say. He starts out by saying, is this a common law court? And the judge, according to my friend, took the gavel and banged it down angrily on his desk, or whatever that thing is called. Bang! Case dismissed. Don't you ever come back to my court, Mr. Jones. And Mr. Jones walked out the door. No ticket. Why? Are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. I heard it sounded like silence. It sounded like silence.
I thought you might have heard the baby crying or something. They got a baby upstairs crying, well, not crying, but making noise. So I was like, man. But anyway, that's good. That's good news. You don't hear.
Well, the judge cried because the judge had just. Now notice here, the judge had an expert witness there, certified by the court as an expert in traffic laws and violations. So all he's got to do is call the policeman. Where were you at 2 o'clock this afternoon? Well, I was going north on Jones or Johnson Street, and I noticed the defendant in his 1997 Volkswagen, whatever it was, make a right-hand turn from Johnson to Smith Street, and I stopped him, and so it's over. The case is over. What are you going to do? Oh, Your Honor, I wasn't me. It wasn't my car. He's got your driver's license. He's got the license number on your car. The records in the computer will say it was you. Yeah. Well, how do you do? No. He dismissed the charges. Why? He didn't want to give, he had to give silent judicial notice of the fact that he had not, it was not a case of the Constitution or the state laws of Arizona. It was a matter, this wasn't a common law court. Because if he had said it was a common law court, then Mr. Jones would say, Your Honor, okay, thank you very much for your answer. I would like now for you to bring the injured party into the courtroom so I can question him to make sure that I did it and see if he's a reasonable man and if he's telling the truth, and I can question him. That's called an arraignment, and you can talk to the injured party. Well, there's no injured party. Who's injured? Notice he didn't run, my friend Mr. Jones didn't run over some kids in the crosswalk or knock a child over with a bicycle or run into a bunch of nuns or a guy with a white cane or knocked over a sign or ran into a bus or something. He didn't do, just made an illegal right-hand turn.
Yeah.
So notice he got away with that because the judge, all the way down in the traffic court in Eloy, Arizona, knew that the story by Howard Freeman was right. It was true because the Supreme Court had overturned the Constitution. It's null and void. Now, let me give you further evidence of that. As I told you, Obama was not born in the United States. If you don't believe me, if you want verification of that, go to the Internet.
Yeah.
Michelle Obama, twice, you can watch her say it. Number one, he said he's a Kenyan. And the second time we went to Africa to his native land. I think that's exactly. I mean, in Kenya. Michelle admitted it twice, and Barack Obama admitted he was not born in America. He was born in Kenya. Now, wait a minute. If that's the case, then we don't have a president, and the Supreme Court should nullify the election of Barack Obama.
Yeah.
But they're not going to. Why? They don't want us to know that the Constitution's null and void. They're taking silent judicial notice of that fact. Now, I've been able to talk to Phil Berg, the number one guy charging the Supreme Court with this task, and both times, this last time was about a year ago, I said to him, Mr. Berg, you still don't have an answer. He said, no, I don't. I said, Mr. Berg, I'll repeat it for the second time. You're not ever going to get an answer. Now, it's been over 2 years. Obama was inaugurated in the year 2009, I think February or January. That's now passed. So it's over 2 years ago, and the Supreme Court still hasn't given an answer. Why? Why? We don't have a president. Not constitution, but we don't have a constitution, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, and the Supreme Court knows that. This is called America's secret destiny.
Well, the thing is 9/11. They already had the Patriot Act already created before 9/11 even happened. But when the president has, which I have a feeling Obama's going to have one, a terrorist attack or something that happens to the United States, he's already had the powers without it even transpiring, without even the terrorist attack happening. He's already has the powers. The president the position is kind of weird because you have this individual who claims to not have the power to do anything other than bargain with Capitol Hill. But the minute a terrorist attack happens, this guy usurps powers that are beyond our imagination. I mean, what they call the Federal Emergency Act goes into play, and he takes control of almost any entity that you can think of. I mean, actuality, the president will become not only a shipping distributor, but the controller thereof of everything that is shipped. I mean, this guy he's a king.
I know. Well, understand, he knows, like you and I do not know. Now you do know, he's got total power.
Yeah.
The only time Congress can act against him is to show that he's not under the Uniform Commercial Code, and they're not going to do that. It's all part of a conspiracy called the America's Secret Destiny. I'm urging your listeners, please, go watch the 4-hour DVD. Give me 4 hours. And if I'm wrong, I'll refund your money. You didn't pay anything, but I'll refund your money. Go watch the video. It's a DVD. America's Secret Destiny. Watch it. Tell me where I'm wrong, but be open. Understand, this is very, very important because we've got to get back into the constitutional manner and have one again, and we've got to get the Supreme Court to declare the decision made in 1938 to be null and void. So we need a president who knows this and put a stop to this nonsense.
Yeah. Wow.
Barack Obama is not our president.
Wow.
It's that simple. Yes, he is our president because the Constitution's gone. It doesn't matter. But they're not going to tell us this. We got them trapped. They can't tell us the Constitution's null and void, so they got to make it sound like it's constitutional. And how do you do that? He's not natural born. The birth certificate that is needed is on the Internet. You can see it with your own eyes. Kenya is Hussein Obama II, I think it's called, born in some in Mombasa, Kenya, in some hospital.
Yeah.
That means he was born in Kenya, therefore he's not eligible to the Constitution, but it doesn't matter, there's no Constitution.
Wow.
Now, you mentioned the 9/11 thing. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
I want to go back to World War I, because they're all connected. World War I is connected to World War II, which is connected to Vietnam, which is connected to 9/11. Let me show you how. In 1916, or maybe a year or two before that, our government conspired with England to sink the Lusitania, which was a big, huge ocean-going liner.
Yeah.
Now, the Lusitania was in New York and was going to go back to England when England was at war with Germany.
Uh-huh.
So the German government put a little ad in the newspaper. I've got a copy of it in my video, and you can see it. They said, please, this is a ship of war. Why? Well, they didn't say that, but we later found out that England, the government, and Cunard Lines and joined in a 50-50 partnership where they would build a ship, but England had the right on a war time to get control of the ship, and they would no longer be used to haul passengers, fee-paying passengers, but to haul soldiers.
Uh-huh.
So the ship was going to go back to England and be used in the war.
Wow.
But so now, the German government said, don't board it because it's a ship of war going into a theater of war.
Yeah.
So Woodrow Wilson, the president, said, no, it's not true. It's a love boat. Go and enjoy yourself. And 123 Americans got on board. And the ship was sunk by actions of our own government. And by the way, this is all detailed, documented, showing you pictures, everything you need to know that it's real. So we wanted to get into World War I. So we staged a fake event called the sinking of the Lusitania. Now, that dirty Germans, look what they did to these people on the love boat. They sunk it and killed them. So then we had to go to war. Okay, so we go to war. Now we had to go to, they created the League of Nations, and Woodrow Wilson signed the treaty, but the Senate wouldn't ratify it. Wait a minute, don't you guys understand? We need a world government called the League of Nations. And it was going to be, and Woodrow Wilson, I believe, was offered the presidency of the world government. So they said, no, we're not going to do this. Senate said, no, we're not going to do that. So they said, okay, we better have a second world war. And it was planned to have the Japanese attack us at Pearl Harbor. Now, you don't believe that? Go to my website, and the first thing you'll see, there's a couple of little paragraphs before you there, is a copy of the Hilo, Hawaii newspaper for the Sunday before the Sunday attack, next Sunday, on December the 7th, 1941. And the headline reads in the newspaper on the Sunday, November 30th, Japan may strike this weekend. Well, wait a minute. How come the newspaper knew but Roosevelt didn't? How come? Because the American people didn't want the war. Roosevelt kept promising us there'd be no war, but our government wanted a war. So we had the Japanese, we forced Japan to attack us at Pearl Harbor, and then we could call it a day of infamy and go to war, World War II. And only 53 million people died in that one. But we needed the United Nations, you see, formed after the World War II. Yeah. Now, Vietnam is another war we had to have, very important. I have a video on my website called Vietnam, America's Betrayal and Treason. You'll see why we planned the war. America planned the war in 1945, 19 years before it started. Wait, what? Our government planned the war? Yes, proof? Yes, I got the proof. Now, why did they have the Gulf of Tonkin was the event that caused the war. So some patrol boats attacked some destroyers out in the ocean, and they were out beyond the what they call the legal limit or shoreline, where it's called. So they were in neutral waters where any ship can float, and so they attacked, and so we had to go to war and get those dirty North Koreans North Vietnamese who decided to attack our destroyer. But the event didn't happen. It didn't happen. You want proof of that? Look up Robert McNamara, and there you'll find out years later he's having a little time with some difficulty with this, so he's going to tell the truth, and he says it never happened. It never. But why do we have to have a war in Vietnam? So our government had to fake another incident like Pearl Harbor and the sinking of the Lusitania to get us into Vietnam for 97 years. Now we needed a war in Iraq and Afghanistan. How are we going to do that? I know what we'll do. Let's stage the 9/11 event and blame it on the Arabs. And if we can do that, we can go to war with the Arabian nations of Iraq and Afghanistan. So our government staged the 9/11 attack. Oh, I don't believe that, Ralph. Of course we don't believe. Do you think they're going to admit it? Oh, guys, listen, we needed to have a war in Vietnam, in Iraq and Afghanistan, so please let us blow up the two Twin Towers. The whole thing was staged. And if you don't believe that, do yourself and your country a favor and go to the Internet, start looking at the hundreds of videos that have been produced to prove it was an inside job. Our government did that, just like they sunk the Lusitania, just like they forced Japan into attacking us, just like they used an event that didn't happen to get us into the war of the Vietnamese War, just like they got us into Afghanistan and Iraq because of an event that didn't happen. I mean, it did happen, rather, but they did it. The evidence is overwhelming. I don't care what the people on the TV say. Watch it yourself. You'll see the evidence. Why? Because we got to have a war. It's a fun thing to have wars. We love wars because we can run up a big defense and a huge budget and have deficit spending and kill people and people can make a lot of money and profits on it. And boy, it's great. We need war. Yeah, we do. We need war.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah, they like
we're
to make
being
profit.
conned because.
Yeah.
What's that?
They say, yeah, you're right.
Here's the reason. There is a conspiracy. Oh, I don't believe that, Ralph. Of course you don't believe it. I didn't believe it either until I spent 50 years of my life researching it. I've documented it in 4 books. Go to my website and browse and see there's a wealth of information there. We need to study it.
Yeah.
And if you think I'm doing this to make money, then you have been looking at my IRS returns. All I can do is what I can do. I do talk shows as much as I can. Try to be as honest, sounding as if I know what I'm talking about, and you go look it up, and I'll document my charges.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
www.ralph, RALPH Epperson, EPP as in Peter, ERSON, Ralph-Epperson.com. Go there and browse. Watch America's Secret Destiny. Watch the video called Vietnam, America's Betrayal and Treason.
Wow.
Our government planned that war in at least 1945. I can prove that. And then it didn't happen until 1964, 19 years later.
Oh. Yeah, that's something globalists like to do is plan ahead of time. It's just like playing chess. The Russians did perestroika, glasnost, and they're still developing the takeover of the world. And they're still developing that plan. Matter of fact, a guy named Vladimir Zhirinovsky wrote a book called A Dash to the South, and it mirrors exactly Ezekiel 38 and 39. Now, did he read Ezekiel 38 and 39 before it happened? Probably not. But, I mean, it's amazing how he describes how they would like to block the African mines where the jet plane get their material. Americans get their material to build jet planes. So, yeah, the conspiratorial view of history is sometimes joked on in Hollywood, but then again they turn around and make movies of conspiratorial view of history. And go ahead.
Well, let me make one last comment since we're running out of time. Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, told us on live national television in 1992, watch it and read it and see it yourself, that there was a conspiracy and that he was part of it. Bill Clinton admitted that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and I've got a video out for about an hour and 10 minutes or so to document that case.
Oh, wow.
So is there something going on here, ladies and gentlemen? I'm suggesting to you need to get busy. Start reading and studying and figuring it out. And then we got to stop it.
Yes, sir. That is so true. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Epperson, for coming on. And like I said, I apologize for the mix-up that we had. But it was great to have you on the show. And we'd love to get you on in a couple of weeks to do it again.
I'll be happy to do whatever I can, Phil. Thank you very much,
God bless.
and thank your listeners for listening.
Yes, sir. God bless.
God bless. Thank you.
Okay, that was Ralph Epperson, awesome author. I got his book a while back when I was in Estacada, Oregon. That was almost, more than 10 years ago. And I would read his book, and that's when I actually started finding out about conspiratorial view. But actually, I had a run-in with a taxi cab driver way back in 1990. And that was my drinking days, and I guess I was headed to the movies, as I can recall. And I got in the car, got in the taxi, started headed towards the movies, and the taxi cab driver started running his mouth about the secret societies and stuff, and me being intoxicated and a young man. I was like, why don't you just put some shut up in your mouth and just be quiet? But I ended up remembering that conversation to this day, and look what I'm doing. I'm talking to thousands for right now. God prohibited millions about these same conspiratorial views that he was talking about at that time. But we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back on, and I'm probably going to end the show, but we'll be right back.
What you just heard was an actual recording of my daughter's heartbeat within my womb. And ever since my husband Jeff saw our moving, active, vibrant daughter by way of live ultrasound image and heard her precious heartbeat within the womb, he's been horrified that we as a society legally kill our children at this stage of life.
As a society, we legally kill our children.
This is the greatest human rights issue of our day.
To join in the conversation, Fridays, 9 to 11, visit WeKillChildren.org and find the show. That's WeKillChildren.org.
Romans 6:23 says, "For the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus our Lord." You're listening to the Prosperity Zone on Blog Talk Radio.